Greetings. Welcome to Homebrew Highlights, a little show where I talk about homemade content for Dungeons & Dragons. My name is Nathan, and for the last 25 years online, I've gone by the name of the Amethyst Dragon. For more than 30 years now, I have been a player and dungeon master, so I've made a lot of homebrew content in my time. When I switched to 5th edition, the pace of that content creation just picked up. I make so much content now that I can't even use it in my 2 weekly homebrew campaigns. So I posted online for everybody to use. Now, in this series, I take a look at homebrews that I've created and highlight those, but I also go out and I find homebrews created by others and share my thoughts on those. Unlike a lot of series, I don't really look too much at the numbers and the balance. I'm looking more at the thoughts, the ideas, how I can use this in my games, how somebody else could use it in theirs. When I get to my own creations, I talk about maybe what inspired them or what thoughts I had in the creation process. Basically, it's ideas. Now, if you like these sort of videos, this sort of content, go ahead, hit the like button, subscribe to my channel. That always helps out. If you want to be notified when I post new videos, which is about every week, you can hit the little notification bell. Special thanks go out to my patrons who support the continued content creation, homebrew content, and now video content as well. If you hadn't guessed yet, today's video is all about cloaks. They are stylish, they come in a variety of makes and fabrics and designs, and I really think they should make a comeback in the general populace and not just at conventions or Renaissance festivals. Because cloaks are cool. They just are. We're going to jump right into the content now. Ignore the cats. And we're going to get started with a Warlock Pact Boon. The Pact of the Cloak is something that I made up. And much like the Pact of the Blade, it is a magical item that's a gift from your Otherworldly Patron to reward your service. Hopefully your service and, not outright rebellion, but whatever you use it for, you get this cloak. This cloak gives you a magical benefit while you wear it, and you can choose which benefit it is and change it each time you finish a short rest or a long rest. It could provide a small boost to your armor class. It could help you survive in harsh climates like deserts or freezing tundras, or it could even help you make a safe and potentially dramatic landing when you fall. The cloak's look should, of course, reflect your Otherworldly Patron. The Archfey may give you a cloak woven out of vines or leaves. Maybe has iridescent wings stitched together to make a cloak. You could have the Fiend that gives you this charred demonic flesh, or human flesh, who knows? Depends on how bad that Fiend is. If you have, say, my Dragon Warlock Patron, maybe you have a dragon hide or tiny scales all over your cloak. It's a little spot where you as a player or your DM can flex a little bit of creativity there. Now, with a Pact Boon, of course, there should be invocations, and I made 3 of them to go with the Pact of the Cloak. The first one I call the Cloak of Attacks. This one puts kind of a sharp metal edge along your cloak and turns it into a weapon. You can use it just like any other melee weapon that you are proficient with, except it uses your charisma modifier for attack and damage bonuses, without having to have a special invocation for it, or necessarily take the Hexblade Patron just to do that. Second one is the Cloak of Invisibility. This is a 7th level invocation, and it lets you benefit from as if somebody had cast greater invisibility on you. Not as versatile as casting the spell yourself, because you can't cast it on anybody else, but you don't have to concentrate it on either. It's the cloak maintaining it. And then finally, I made the Cloak of Shielding. This one, inspired a little bit by the Cloak of Levitation in Doctor Strange. This one moves on its own to intercept attacks that are coming toward you. And if you are not using a shield, it boosts your armor class as if it were a shield. It gives you a +2 to your armor class. Moving completely on its own to intercept things that would hurt you. I just thought that one would be cool, thematic. Maybe if somebody's playing a Doctor Strange-like character, having the Cloak of Shielding would just kind of go along with it. And speaking of Pact Boons, a while back I made up several Otherworldly Patrons based on the names of these Pact Boons. For the Pact of the Tome, I made the Athenaeum, which is a library. I made the Witchblade for Pact of the Blade. It's kind of my Hexblade replacement. Because I don't have a Shadowfell in my game, or Raven Queen, or any of the lore behind it. Now, the Chains of Creation is a patron I came up based on the name of the Pact of the Chain, but it actually has nothing to do with familiars. And from my Pact of the Cloak, which you just heard about, we have the Silver Cloak. Now, the Silver Cloak is this mysterious being that is said to hunt down monsters in the dark using silver and light, or metal and light. It grants powers to those who have the same goals of, hunting down the things that go bump in the night. And right away, this patron gives you the Light Cantrip and Sacred Flame, and you get proficiency in martial weapons and shields. So there's your metal, and there's your light right off the bat. And you also get a bonus on your Constitution saving throws to resist the nasty things that can happen when certain creatures bite you. Poisons, diseases, lycanthropy. Your patron helps protect you from that a little bit. Later on, 6th level, you do extra damage when you wield silver weapons. And when you cast spells that do radiant damage, you do a little extra damage. You also get more resistant to the mental failings that can come with fighting in the dark. So when you are in darkness, or after the sun sets but before sunrise, you get advantage on charisma and wisdom saves to help avoid, losing your mind or being frightened, that sort of thing. Later on, you can create this cloak of magical light that just covers you and illuminates the area around you. And this light is so bright that it actually burns these creatures of darkness with radiant damage, and they have trouble attacking you. And these could be things like aberrations or fiends or undead. I list a bunch of them in the subclass itself. Your DM could have a different interpretation depending on your campaign. So that's a little personalization that can go in DMs. And at 14th level, they get a special form of the Daylight spell that actually creates sunlight, which is very helpful against things like vampires and specters, shadows, and creatures of the darkness, however your DM categorizes those, have difficulty trying to hide in or near that sunlight. They have disadvantage on their stealth rolls. Not something they might use in the bright light, but you never know with things that, try to turn invisible and sneak around even when there's bright light. Now, if you have this patron, the Silver Cloak, and the Pact of the Cloak boon, your Pact Cloak gets a little bonus. It can be used as an arcane spell focus. So you can cast your spells using your cloak as a focus without having to hold it in your hands because you're wearing it. I tried to link those up a little bit there. You don't have to take the Pact of the Cloak with the Silver Cloak as your patron. I know I have a NPC in one of my games that has this patron and uses Pact of the Blade for a greatsword. So that's fun. Now moving on to actual magical items, we're going to start with homebrew created by other people. The first one I'm going to cover is the Cloak of Many Arms. This is by a group that goes by Gelatinous Cubicles. And they created this cloak that seems to be woven out of human hair. That may seem really weird, but then again, we wear cloaks made out of sheep hair. It's a different animal, same purpose. Now, when you pull the hood up on this Cloak of Many Arms, you actually suddenly grow 4 extra arms. If you happen to have more than 2 arms already, you're limited to 6 arms in total. But for most characters that have 2 arms, you'll get 2 extras. Now, this doesn't give you extra actions or extra attacks that you might think, but it does give you a lot of benefits. For one, you get an extra item interaction on your turn. Instead of just 1, you can use these other hands, arms all in with hands, to grab another item or open a door, manipulate an item, something like that. If you use at least 2 of your 6 hands to climb, you get a climbing speed equal to your walking speed. More handholds, let you go faster, and you can still hold on to your weapons and things. Because extra hands and arms give you extra leverage, you get advantage on strength checks and strength saving throws. If you're using a crossbow or firearms, this lets you ignore the loading property on such weapons because you have extra hands to load in the ammo. That extra leverage that was mentioned earlier lets you wield a heavy weapon even if you wouldn't otherwise qualify for it, like a gnome or a halfling. I could see a gnome totally wielding a great club, or a halfling running into battle with 6 arms and a greatsword. That just sounds like fun. And when I first read about this, the image that first jumped into my head was the guy in the mail sorting room scene in Men in Black 2. I believe he had 6 or 8 arms, or maybe more than that, but I just imagine these multiple arms doing multiple things at once. You wouldn't be going as fast, but it's the image that jumped into my mind. I could totally see a character that's going for a spider theme going for a cloak like this, so that they have 8 limbs in total. Someone wanting to be a thief, or just going with the whole spider theme. Maybe spider theme spells. I've got some of those that might go along with that type of character. Well, again, that was the Cloak of Many Arms from Gelatinous Cubicles. Next one I've got here is called the Cloak of the Gargoyle. This is by a Reddit user named RestlessGnoll. This cloak looks a bit like gray marble, and it actually has the hood on it has these 2 horn-like protrusions, so you could be wearing it, and if you stand perfectly still, you look like a statue. But it does give you a bit of protection, +1 to your armor class. And once a day, though, the cloak lets you cast a special form of polymorph on yourself. It works just like the spell. You still have to concentrate it. It lasts an hour, but you turn into a gargoyle. Nothing else, no beast or anything, but a gargoyle. And I can kind of see this being used. Several of these, say you have a magical school like Hogwarts, or a palace with lots of money. Maybe having specially trained guards that stand perfectly still and stand watch, dressed in these cloaks, and then when they see trouble, they can actually turn into gargoyles and swoop down on the troublemakers, whether that's, unauthorized intruders or, misbehaving magical students. Now, that is the Cloak of the Gargoyle by RestlessGnoll. The next one I got here is the Waterfall Cloak. This is by someone named Chime, and this funky-looking cloak is designed to look like a waterfall actually cascading over you. And you're even surrounded by a cool mist, so it is light and refreshing, as well as stylish. While you're wearing this cloak, you can use the Shape Water cantrip to manipulate water. It can produce fresh, drinkable water, gallons of it every day, so you're never going to go thirsty. It can cast a Wall of Water spell once a day, so you can use it for defense. I don't know, you could have fun if you're just trying to run into it, cool off someday. While you're wearing the cloak, you can breathe underwater and you gain a swimming speed. You can spend all day under the water. If you like water that much and you're wearing this cloak, you might as well. One of the coolest things about this, though, is you can move across, up, and down liquid surfaces as if they were solid. You can run across a river. You can hop and skip up a whitewater rapids. A monk could actually run up a waterfall wearing this. I wouldn't let anybody else just go up a vertical surface of water like that, but a monk, sure, because they can run up walls anyway at decent levels. So a monk up a waterfall, and I really like the custom artwork that comes with this one too. Artwork comes from the cloaks designers. Now for other cloaks, we'll go for ones that I designed myself. The first one here, I designed, this was totally inspired by one of my own children. Several years ago, I and family members were at my parents' house, and we were playing a game called cornhole. It's that beanbag tossing game. And at some point, someone was just about to toss the beanbag, and my eldest son walked through the middle of the game, said, "I'm a distraction," and just kept walking. Cracked us up. I laugh about it to this day, and it has been several years. But I made the Cape of Distraction based on that. This is a shiny silk cape. It's attention getting. But what this does is it lets you perform the help action in battle. Now, normally when you do that, you'd have to be right next to the person you're helping to give them advantage on their attack by using your action and giving up your attack. But with the Cape of Distraction, you can do that from up to 20 feet away. So if for some reason you can't do something that turn, or you know they've got a big attack lined up, and you can't get right next to them, you can still distract the enemy with the Cape of Distraction. So that's a helpful one. Not too powerful, but fun. Another one I have is the Cloak of Engulfing Shadows. So behind this one, in September of 2020, we had this whole pandemic thing going. I decided to do a month of themed content, and that content was Shadows and Darkness. So this was called Septumbra. One of my patrons came up with a name for that. The Cloak of Engulfing Shadows was created for that. This is this flowing black silk cloak that absorbs light. Even when nobody's wearing it, it dims the light around it. Bright light becomes dim light. Dim light becomes darkness. Darkness becomes magical darkness. I'd say equivalent to the second level spell. If you're actually wearing the cloak, you can see in magical darkness as if it's normal darkness. So if you're human or halfling and don't have dark vision, you still can't see anything. But if you happen to have dark vision, you treat it as normal darkness. Because the cloak absorbs so much light, especially when it's closer to you, it absorbs enough to give you advantage on your saving throws against being blinded and against things that cause radiant damage. So it protects from the light a little bit. Another cloak that came out of Septumbra, I call Comfort of Darkness. This is a soft, furry black cloak that makes you feel safe and warm. And it does that by magically making you immune to being frightened. And it gives you resistance to cold damage. So it's like a big, snuggly, warm security blanket, but a lot more stylish. And it's black and furry. So that is Comfort of Darkness. Yes, sometimes I take phrases that are used in different parts of the English language and turn them into spells and magic items. And this was one of them. Last cloak I'm going to talk about is called Statuebreaker's Cloak. This one originated in my Neverwinter Nights persistent world that ran for 11 years. It is a heavy cloak. It looks like it's made out of stone, but it flexes and bends like fabric. Now, in-game, this was supposedly created for a dwarven Medusa hunter. While the magic of the cloak doesn't actually prevent you from turning to stone, like a lot of things might, it does actually turn you back into flesh and blood almost immediately after you're petrified. So while you are probably made fun of by your party members for, your face, being stuck as a silly face or a weird expression, for a few seconds, it goes away. While this could definitely be used by characters that fight things like basilisks and medusas and gorgons, I could actually see this being owned by an NPC Medusa who, would really like to have some company over once in a while. They could welcome their visitor and say, "Hey, put on this cloak before you come in," and then have them join her for, dinner or whatever, tour of the garden, and then when they're on their way out, the Medusa can take it back, put it back on the hook for the next visitor. Different use for a magic item. Or, player characters could use it to, fight basilisks or Medusas. Whatever you want to use it for. Well, that's pretty much it for this week. Be sure to tune in next week when I continue on with part 3 of my series on light. Next week, the focus will be on spells of light and brightness. Perfect for your holy spellcasters or white wizards. And with the holidays coming up, I'll also throw in a couple of things that could go in your holiday-themed adventures. But that'll be next week. If you like this sort of video, don't forget to hit those like and subscribe buttons. All of my personal homebrews can be found on my grand list of homebrew content at www.amethyst-dragon.com. There's at least 850 things on there. I post new content every 2 or 3 days on average, sometimes daily. So there's always new stuff to look at. Lots of my content is available for free, and if you go to that site, it'll show which ones that is. The other content is for my patrons. Patronage is not expensive if you want all the content. I think it's well worth it, and it helps contribute to supporting me as I make more homebrew content and more of these videos. Some of my patrons can actually get all of my stuff 2 weeks earlier than everybody else, or they can request custom-made content just for their games. But even if you are not a patron or do not become a patron, I do thank you for stopping by and watching this video, listening in, hanging out, hearing about homebrews. Well, I'm going to end that up here. Once again, my name is Nathan. This has been Homebrew Highlights with the Amethyst Dragon. I want you to have a good day, good evening, whenever you're watching this. I'm going to go make some more homebrews, maybe the 6 or 7 things that I came up today while I was at my parents' house for Thanksgiving. Anyway, take care, and I'll see you next week.